Hi there, thank you so much for joining me today. I'm Ann Taylor Pittman, Executive Editor at Cooking Light, and today I am sharing a wonderful treat that I would like to encourage you to make for your mom for Mother's Day. I cannot speak to what every mother wants for Mother's Day, but I'm a mom. I've talked with some of my mom friends. The number one thing that most of my mom friends want is time. Now, hopefully you can give your mother some time to herself. And you know what else they want? They want a warm skillet cookie. So that's what we're making today, is an oatmeal raisin skillet cookie with miso caramel sauce. So it starts with 3 tablespoons of butter that I'm gonna brown in the pan. Now the beauty of a skillet cookie is that it's all warm. It's somewhere between cake and cookie, almost like a brownie in texture. Like I said, we're starting with some butter that we're gonna brown. So it's only 3 tablespoons of butter, and browning the butter is a great technique when you have a little bit of butter that you want to taste like a lot of butter. Browning it sort of creates caramel flavors, kind of more richness, more depth, and it just adds a lot more richness to this recipe. I am sputtering like crazy here. It's all good. Now I'm working with a cast iron skillet. You want something that can go in the oven because we're baking the cookie in the skillet. I want the butter to get browned. It's a dark skillet, but I can sort of see with the bubbles what color the butter is. And once I pour it into the bowl, you can see as well. I don't know why it's sputtering so much. Okay, so I'm getting kind of nice and browned here, and I can smell it. When it starts to smell nutty, oh yeah, so it's gotten some browning to it. You can go a little bit darker than this if you'd like. It's gonna add a little more, even more richness, more sort of nutty, toasty notes. Let me just turn that off for now. But you don't want to go until it's the color of coffee, then it's going to taste burned. Okay, so I have my brown butter. Again, a great technique for when you're using a little bit of butter and you want to amplify its flavor and make it taste like more. I'm also adding 5 tablespoons of canola oil. You could also use grapeseed oil, just a neutral flavored oil. Even avocado oil would work here. And then 1/3 cup each of brown sugar. This is light brown sugar. You could also use dark brown sugar, and then 1/3 cup of granulated sugar. Just stirring those around in the bowl, and then a teaspoon of vanilla extract, a 1/2 teaspoon of ground cinnamon. This is an oatmeal raisin cookie, so cinnamon is pretty classic with an oatmeal raisin cookie. I mean, this smells already so buttery just by taking the little extra step of browning that butter. And then 1 large egg. So those are my wet ingredients, just whisking together. Okay, then I have 1 cup of all-purpose flour. Now, if you'd like to use a whole grain flour, you could definitely substitute a whole wheat pastry flour, something really delicate like that, 1 cup of that. But we're going with all-purpose here because we are going to get some whole grain goodness in the form of the oats. So I added 3/4 of a teaspoon of baking soda. It's our leavening agent. I'm going to just dump that in and whisk it. So another great thing about the skillet cookie is it's all sort of whisked together in the bowl here. You don't have to get your mixer out. You can if you want, but you can just kind of keep it easy and do it all by hand. Okay. Now the batter, as you'll see, is pretty thick. This is a cookie, not a cake, so don't expect the batter to be loose like a cake batter. It's more almost like a brownie batter or a blondie batter. I'm going to fold in here 1 cup of regular old-fashioned oats and a 1/2 cup of raisins. You could use another dried fruit if you'd like. I love raisins because they're classic. Another thing I love about raisins is, unlike a lot of dried fruit that has added sugars, raisins don't have any added sugar. Oh, great. We have a question. The question was, if you don't have regular rolled oats, can you use instant oats? I would not use instant. Now, if you have quick cooking oats, I think those would work just fine, but the instant oats might just be a little too pulverized to work well in this recipe. So, but quick oats should work just fine. Okay, so you see the batter is pretty thick. Again, sort of like a blondie or a brownie batter. And then it goes right into the skillet that we use to brown the butter. Make sure it's an oven-proof skillet. We recommend cast iron for this recipe. If all you have is stainless steel, that should work fine too. You may not get as well, the browned kind of crunchy edges, but it should work just fine. So just kind of spread the batter around in the pan. Like I said, don't worry that the batter is thick. It's supposed to be. And there's a little bit of residual butter in the skillet. So much like if you've ever made cornbread in a cast iron skillet and melted your butter in the pan, then poured the butter into the batter, you have that residual butter in the pan, and that's going to help crisp up the edges really beautifully. Okay, so this is going to go into a 325-degree oven for about 25 to 30 minutes, just until it's starting to kind of crack around the edges. You can touch it and tell that it's set and it's done. So 325 for 25 to 30 minutes. And now I'm going to start on the sauce. So the sauce is a miso-caramel sauce. So miso is one of our favorite ingredients to use for all types of savory recipes, but it makes for a killer caramel sauce too. If you're a fan of salted caramel, this is right up your alley, because miso is salty. It also has more complexity. It's a little bit sweet. It has more roundness than just salt. And it's fermented, so it has like an it doesn't have a funky flavor, but it just has a little more complexity. Okay, so here I'm using 2 tablespoons of butter to start this caramel sauce. Traditionally, with a caramel sauce, you start with granulated sugar and you cook it until it melts and it browns. We're using a little bit of a shortcut by starting with brown sugar. So for the sauce, it's a 1/4 cup of brown sugar, 2 tablespoons of that butter. I'm using unsalted butter because the miso is quite salty. I just want to kind of stir this around until the butter is incorporated into the sugar. To that, I'm going to add 3 tablespoons of white miso. So miso is fermented soybean paste. You'll find it in the refrigerated section, sometimes not in every grocery store, but certainly in a Whole Foods or a Fresh Market, that type of more specialty store, Trader Joe's, you'll find miso. I'm going to stir that in here and just kind of whisk it until it dissolves and gets sort of smooth. Turn my heat down just a little bit. Great. That is a great question. So the question is, can you use a different type of miso other than the white miso that we recommend? You can. If you're using red miso, it is super powerful in terms of saltiness and sort of punchy flavor. I would use far less. So we use 3 tablespoons of white miso here. I would use, if I were using red miso, I would start with 1 tablespoon and sort of see how that does. Yellow miso is less common. You really have to go to a specialty store to find that. But if you do use a yellow miso, I would start with maybe 2 tablespoons and see how that does. That was a great question. White miso we use for a lot of our recipes. We find that it is kind of the most versatile. It can go into everything from a dessert like this to a soup. One of my favorite recipes is a Cooking Light chicken noodle soup from several years ago. I want to say it was November 2012, maybe, which would be our 25th anniversary. It was a chicken noodle soup that was a fast recipe, I think a 25-minute recipe, and it used a little bit of miso to enrich the broth and make it taste like a soup that took hours to cook. It was a great, great technique. Okay, sauce is almost done. I'm now adding 1 tablespoon of heavy cream. Now that's just going to add a lot of richness. If this is not something that you keep in your fridge, You can try using another dairy product. You could try half and half. Make sure the pan is off the heat. Half and half will curdle if you bring it to a boil. Milk is not going to have quite, just regular, like even whole milk, it's not going to have quite enough richness, but evaporated milk, canned evaporated milk, could work nicely in a pinch. And then the last thing is a teaspoon of cider vinegar. Apple cider vinegar here is just going to round out the flavor. So we have that rich saltiness from the miso, we have the sweetness from the brown sugar and that richness from the butter. And then just a little bit of cider vinegar kind of works the way lemon juice would. So add a little bit of brightness so it's not just so overwhelming in its flavor. Okay, so that is the sauce, which looks great. Let's see, let me just pour that in a bowl so you can see how it looks. That is our caramel. Wonderful. And then I have a baked cookie over here so you can see how it looks when it all comes together. Skillet cookies are really fun. Now, if you're with your family or a big group, you can just all kind of eat out of the skillet together. Maybe you think that's gross, maybe not. But here's what the cookie looks like. So it's baked, it's got some nice sort of crispy edges. And let me just cut into it. So this is that wonderful Oatmeal-Raisin skillet cookie. Lovely. I'm going to plate up a couple. Now, if you're bringing this out to the table, here's what I love to do because I think it makes for a great presentation. I'm going to go ahead and cut it into the servings. This makes 12 servings, which is like a pretty big cookie if you think of this as a cookie. And then what you can do is top it with some vanilla frozen yogurt. And bring that out to the table, and the warm cookie will start to melt the frozen yogurt, and it sort of becomes like a sauce. We're not serving a ton of frozen yogurt with this. We just want a little just to sort of sauce the cookie. Okay, so let me plate this up, and you can see what it's like with that wonderful caramel drizzled over it. So we have our skillet cookie for Mom. For Mother's Day. To all the mothers out there and moms to be, happy Mother's Day ahead of time. I hope that your kids make you feel very special. I hope my kids make me feel very special. Moms should be celebrated every day, so should dads. But it's nice to have sort of one dedicated holiday that is special for you. Okay. And then I'm just going to drizzle on some of this caramel. Again, if you're a salted caramel person, this is going to be right up your alley. Okay, a little bit of that miso caramel over there. And that is a warm skillet cookie that is perfect for celebrating Mom. Thank you so much for joining today. I hope you like this recipe. I hope you try it out. And if you do, let me know in the comments. Let me know if you have some ideas for things you'd like to see on live. Please join us on Facebook. Please share this with your friends. Please like this page. And if you're watching on YouTube, please subscribe so that you'll know when we go live. Thank you so much. I'll see you next week.